So we're more than willing to help as long as you're putting in the effort, right? So effort for effort, right? Those are the ideal students. That they're putting in the effort, they're making phone calls, they're sending us their recordings so they can get better on the phone. It's all a mindset, right? You got to, like you said, you got to fail in order to improve. And you got to put yourself out there. Like you said, you got to be uncomfortable, right? You got to be uncomfortable. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Hey, welcome back to Real Estate Junkies Coast to Coast. I'm your co-host, Rusty Ham. I'm on the West Coast. It's nice and sunny out today. Steve, you're on the East Coast.
Yeah.
Steve Mernick is my other co-host. Say hi, Steve.
Russell, look, I'm wearing shorts, dude. Look at this. I got shorts on today.
Oh my goodness.
Transitioning in Rhode Island. I'm excited.
That's awesome, man. That's great. Today, we're going to work on some mindset and the buyer side. So our warm up, the three pillars, again, the three pillars are mindset, skill set, and systems. We are going to talk about the mindset aspect of the pillar. And Steve, we got into real estate again in 2019. I think you were 2018. We wanted to change our lives, right? I wanted to stop teaching. You wanted to stop making cabinets, right?
Nope.
So we got into real estate for that reason. And we buy on terms. We don't put any money down. We don't use capital. Now, I think that I think you can agree that we got into it primarily for that reason. We didn't want to use our own capital. This is not easy, right? Real estate is not easy. Depending on, it doesn't matter what niche you're in. It's not easy. Can you touch upon that kind of mindset as far as obviously if it was easy, everyone would be doing it, right?
Yeah. I think in general, you can choose real estate or any kind of business you're building. It's not supposed to be easy. That's why the majority of people work for somebody else, right? It's a completely shifted percentage of people who are entrepreneurs who aren't. It's supposed to be difficult, right? Because imagine like you go into a job as a laborer and you have to be good at one thing. This thing that the job description that you took on is now you have to figure out a way to get really good at that and progress in your career. Before you had the opportunity of being hired, the person who owned the company, they were they were the accountant, they were the secretary, they were the salesman, right? So that's like the difference between owning a business and going to work for one. But there's so much value in obviously going to work for someone that gives you, if you have an entrepreneurial brain, what you're doing right now is you are preparing yourself if you really want to pay attention and look to see what business owners are doing and what they're overlooking to see how they can continue to build their business and scale. So no, Russell, it is 100% not easy, but at the same time, anything worth doing isn't. So I think it's important to look into, say we're just talking specifically about real estate now. When you come into real estate, the business of real estate basically is on the phone, right? It's highly uncomfortable, as we've talked about many times before. And you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. That is literally the definition of being an entrepreneur. It's throwing stuff at the wall, seeing what sticks. And then once you see what's working, what's not, then you have to continue to make adjustments until you put yourself in a position to continue to move up and not have this roller coaster of a ride, which does happen in the beginning. But the whole idea of have a successful business is to be on the bottom of that hockey stick and continue to move up, right?
Yep. Yeah. So it's constantly innovating, improving, right? You got to be seeking improvement. You got to be looking for ways to improve. There's going to be dips, right? There's going to be dips. You're going to have some euphoria when you get that first check from that buyer. We're going to talk about that in a second. But then there's also going to be those dips where, and again, we're going to talk about there's not every buyer is perfect, right? And you're going to, like you said, when you talk on the phone, they're going to tell you to go fly a kite, right? Because they've been getting phone calls from realtors and other investors. So you gotta grind through it. You're going to get a lot of no's. Just FYI, if you're just now coming into real estate and you start making phone calls, you are going to get a lot of no's. And how do you react to that? And then also, what I've been finding in the community, Steve, is people they want everything given to them. I don't know if you experience that when you're coaching, is that they want to be handheld the whole way through. They want answers immediately, and they don't seek like on their own. They don't like try to figure out things. They want their coach to give them the answer immediately instead of trying to figure it out on their own. Now they are paying money to write. They're paying money to be in the community, and they want answers. But you gotta. For me, it was, I wanted to try to do it on my own just so I can figure it out. So I don't know if you can touch on that as well.
Yeah, and I think there's two sides to this, right? So on one side, let's look at it as the student coming in being mentored. When you come into this new business and it's already uncomfortable, but you're told you have somebody that's going to help you, what are you going to do? When you're uncomfortable, you're going to be like, who can help me? And then just, and that's a good student too. It's
Right.
funny, like you get these independent students that come in and they don't want to bother you. And on the other side of that, like as a coach, it's okay. I have so many people I'm coaching and this person's working really hard, but also if you're suffering in silence and you're not telling us what's going on, we can't help you. So there's a balance in between that. And I think that's just in general of human beings, right? They pick up patterns of what people's reactions are to them asking for what. So if you as a coach, and this is, I learned this in the beginning when I was coaching, what did I want to do? I wanted to react all the time. Somebody was like, I need help. I need help. And it's just, Steve, go fix all these problems and help them. Well, what ends up happening when you're fixing problems and not giving people room to grow themselves is they stay right there, right? They can't go and climb and elevate past where you're letting them. So that's a big piece of coaching, which is difficult as well, is knowing when to help them and also push them to trying this new thing that they're not comfortable with, that they may screw up, right? They may make a mistake, but you learn way more than your mistakes than you do from your successes. So that's that balance, Russell, of being a good coach, is knowing when to continue to put them in uncomfortable places so that they can really see what they're capable of. And that's a huge piece of coaching that took me a long time to get used to. It was just like, if I can make these people successful and I can do a lot of the work for them, this is going
Yeah.
to get them more traction. But when you do that, you stunt people's growth. So that's why I was saying like it's a balance on both sides.
Yeah, you're actually hindering them more than you are helping, right?
Mm.
So the ideal student is the ones that they look for the answers for on their own. They try to, because we have a home study course called QOS. They go in there first, they look at all the videos, and then they can't find it. And then they come to us, hey, I can't find this. Where can I get it? Rather than just immediately messaging us, hey, where is this? And it's, have you looked? No, I haven't. Like you said, it's a balancing act. So we're more than more than willing to help as long as you're putting in the effort, right? So effort for effort, right? Those are the ideal students, that they're putting in the effort. They're making phone calls. They're sending us their recordings so they can get better on the phone. It's all a mindset, right? You gotta, like you said, you gotta fail in order to improve, and you gotta put yourself out there. Like you said, you gotta be uncomfortable,
Mhm.
right? You gotta be uncomfortable. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable. That's what you said earlier,
Yeah.
right?
And you got to be willing. I think the biggest piece is being able to surrender. And we talk about this, about everybody comes in, whether they want to or not, there's always going to be an ego presence, usually from your career that's right now that maybe you're really good at. And you felt comfortable there for so long. So like you have this confidence associated with this thing you've been doing before you've tried real estate. And even if you've already been doing real estate, but you've never done creative real estate, it's a whole new breed, right? It's like looking at sports, right? Just because you can play baseball good doesn't mean you're going to be great at football, right? Real estate is a million avenues, just like sports has a million different games you can be playing. It's the same thing. You have to be willing to understand that this is going to be highly uncomfortable again. I have to jump in. I have to surrender and be okay with people critiquing me. It'll be okay with understanding that everything I'm doing right now has like an exponential amount of improvement needed to get where I need to be, but we have to start somewhere. And as long as we take action, we're going to continue to get better. But I still have to, this week, I actually spent probably half hour times five, whatever that is, on 2.5 hours critiquing my own calls, just talking to sellers, talking to clients and stuff like that. And no matter how much it is that you think that you nailed the call, there is always little things to improve. And that's what's amazing, right? You go to your coach and what do you say? All right, what do we do usually when our coach wants recordings to listen to? I'm going to go and pick and choose the good ones, right?
The
This
best
one's
one.
going to be awesome. It's going to be so proud of me. She's going to be so proud of me.
And
And
he's
then you
gonna love
send
this
it
one.
and you get roasted, completely lit up. But that's good, right? Because now you can see that even at what you think your best is, there's so much room for improvement. So at least if you're open and willing to receive that help, like the sky is the absolute limit. It's when you sit there and you're like, oh, I'm not going to send in call because I don't like the way I sound, or oh, I don't want to get lit up by my coach. It's you have to understand and change the framework around that. I'm sending in these calls knowing and should be excited that there's crazy amounts of room that I can improve on. And when I get this actual call critiqued, I can now make my next call with all these new tools, put them in play immediately, and be able to be prepared for these opportunities when they come the next time. In comparison to the other way you look at it, could be the negative side, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I got to hear this. Oh, I don't want to hit this person to hurt my feelings. It's like you got to release all of that and show up looking to get better, and that's the only thing you're looking to get.
Yeah, and then you get something that, oh, I don't want to bug you. It's like, what are you talking about? And then being consistent, right? Lastly, is just you just got to keep you just got like my mom always said, just keep plugging along, just keep going after it and do it daily over and over
Yep.
repetition. It is boring. It's not fun. It's not easy, but the benefits definitely outweigh, especially the way we do it because we don't put a whole lot of money in. Like, for example, if you do a lease purchase, if you're listening, that we've talked about a lease purchase, it's a $10 option fee, but the money that you receive from a lease purchase is exponential. Let's transition to that. Great segue. Wow. Let's get into our game plans. Again, game plans, the 4 game plans that we primarily deal with in the terms business is a lease purchase, what I just talked about, a subject to buying a house subject to the existing mortgage, owner financing when the house is free and clear. And then we also have one, it's called the lease purchase. We call it executive lease purchase, an AO, where we find the buyer, which we're going to talk about right now. We find a tenant buyer who is just outside of financing. They need time in order to get that financing. And then once we find them, we assign them back to the seller. Steve, describe a typical buyer, right? So let's say hypothetically, we got a lease purchase, we got it under contract. We make it contingent on finding a buyer. So we got it under contract. Now we go and find, because we're not living in it, right? We're going to find a tenant buyer that is just outside of financing. And there's a couple of reasons why. So describe what a tenant buyer, who we're looking for.
Yeah. So tenant buyers will also, Russell, you said we're not going to live in it. I'm in one of my rental
Oh, that's true. So I
right
lied.
now.
I lied. Sorry.
So I'll explain who I am first.
There you
why
go.
I'm in this is because I'm self-employed and I need to show what is it, usually 24 months of tax returns so that I can go ahead and be able to qualify for a loan because self-employed people, like the majority of my buyers, they need to show stability, right? And what are self-employed people very good at? Not showing all their income. Other people could have credit that's just under whatever the threshold is to get a loan. Typically it's a 700 plus credit score, 6-month of proven payments or 6 months of some kind of steady job of income. If you have a W-2 job, there's many reasons why. It could also be you don't have enough for a down payment. It doesn't matter that you have great credit. You don't have any down payment and maybe you're not a veteran, right? You need to put some kind of money down because the loan requires 3%, 5%, 10%, whatever it is that you're getting. Like I look at my buyers, my second deal was a waitress, mainly cash business, right? And her husband worked for a moving company, but his income alone wasn't enough to get a loan. And her income wasn't showing enough because it was mostly cash. So they needed 24 months to be able to buy a home and the bank wouldn't give them a loan today. Perfect fit, right? Another one that I have now that's closing out the end of this month, self-employed. He does digital art. He has his own business, mainly cash business. Again, same thing. Another one of my buyers, same thing, self-employed and I believe it's like earth repair, basically get going and excavating around houses for like French drains and stuff like that. So the majority of my buyers have been self-employed. So if let's say they didn't meet someone like Russell or I that had some kind of rent to own program, what they have to do is they have to rent or figure out some kind of situation where they can't get a loan for the next 2 years while they're getting their numbers and everything that the bank wants to see together. So they're stuck throwing money into, say, a rental where they're not getting any kind of equity or anything in the home. So that's just your typical situation. There could be many reasons. I also have buyers that are military, right?
Mhm.
And they're moving all around the place and they finally found a place, but maybe it is that they haven't had enough income for long enough. Whatever it is, there's lots of reasons. But the whole main piece here, Russell, is that they cannot meet the bank's credentials today. So what's nice is they get to reserve their right in a home be able to gain equity by putting a down payment in, or giving them time to build up their down payment. So when they do get a loan down the future, we've given them that runway to have that 10% down, 20% down, whatever it is that they need to show to get that loan.
I'll describe one of mine, and it's the opposite, right? So this was $1 million home that I got under contract. The tenant buyer that I found, the wife, they were in bankruptcy. She was in bankruptcy. So she was in her 5th year because bankruptcy usually lasts around that time, the 5 to 7 years. So hers was 7 years. So she had 2 years left, which is perfect, right? She's not going to be able to get a loan. She's in bankruptcy. So it was perfect. They made a ton of money, right? There was a $1 million home. Obviously she did not look good on paper because of her bankruptcy. So we put her in a situation where we put her in the home as a rent to own. So that they had the money, they had the down payment, and we put her in this situation. Then 2 years later, her bankruptcy is expunged. Now she's able to get a loan. And for those people, listen, there's people that make millions and millions of dollars, but can't walk into a bank and get a loan. There's a lot of people like that. And this is a perfect situation for them, right? They have a down payment. For example, this is a $1.1 million home. They had 10% down. They were able to put $110,000 down as a down payment. They had the money, the cash flow to buy $1 million home. They just needed some time, right? She just needed time to get that thing expunged off her record. Yeah. And then they go to the bank and they get a loan. So it's a perfect situation. And again, we talked about mindset in the beginning. It's not easy. Not every buyer is perfect. Now we do vet them, right? I said, we do vet them, right? We go through, and that's another thing too, Steve, is if they don't find our program, they're trying to do this on their own. They're renting, they're trying to fix their credit on their own. They probably created some bad habits over the years, and it's very difficult to do it on your own. So what we do is we hook them up with a third-party company that is they're going to get all their information, all their financials. We do criminal and all that kind of stuff, all the backgrounds that you normally would do if they were renting, but we find out what their DTI is. We get a report from them. Hey, this is what their DTI is in the future. This is what their payment's going to look like in the future. So they know that going into it, like what their payment's going to be in the future. But they also put together a game plan if they do have some credit issues on what they need to do in order to get their credit straightened away. So there is a game plan. We don't just leave them high and dry. But talk about you said, I think you described before we got on, kind of describe a couple of the buyers, the good and the bad and the ugly.
Yeah. Yeah. So I have 2 of them right now. On the good side, I have one it has a closing date. I believe if it's in the middle of the 20s in this month somewhere. I think it's like the 24th, a closing. It's actually, I think it's my 5th house. They've been in it it was a 36-month deal. I think they've been in it now for 34 months. They needed extra time, more than 24 months, these people, just because of the fact of it was income. When they were trying to get a loan month 24, they needed more income. So it's actually, I didn't tell you about this, Russell, but this is why so let's say I get a property under contract with a seller, and this was a lease purchase. So I got 36 months with the seller to be able to cash them out. So once I put a buyer in the home, I had 36 months from that day to cash them out. When we sell these houses to a rent to own buyer, we give them 24 months to buy the home and gives us a 12-month buffer zone if we need it. These buyers needed it. When they went to go get a loan, they were told that your income needed to come up. And why did that happen? Because when I sold them the house, interest rates were 4 point something. Right. When they went to go get a loan, now interest rates, I think their interest rate was either a high 6 or a low 7. So that changed dramatically what their income had to be when we put them in the home. Right. They had been great, and they went and did what was necessary to be able to get the loan. The buyer went and just got a part-time job just to bring the income up. He went right in there and did that. And then when he did that, he was like a couple $100 away from being able to get a loan. And what ended up having to put them over the edge is a family member. This is what we talk about when we say, if somebody wants it enough, they will do what it takes to get it done. That's us trying to build a business. That's buyers trying to buy a home. And what happened? They reached out to a family member that went and paid off like $15,000 of school loans for one of the buyers so that they can qualify immediately. And that's what put them over the edge. And now they can just pay their family member over time and get this house and not lose it. Because I didn't want to take that away from them, but I do have a timeline in which I have to close with the seller itself. And they did that. So now they're going to close on the house. But this is a perfect example of, and I thought about this one, like Russell, when we first did this, right? The amount of fears that we had to build this business in the beginning outweighed any ability for us to see that we could be successful. It was like we were screaming in the woods, running in this dark. We don't know where we're going. We can't see anything. And it seems like we're never going to be able to outrun this fear. And then eventually, when you keep running, it starts getting light out again and you're fine.
Yeah.
But we wanted our ability to want to change our lives or be successful eventually outweighed our fear, right? So you look at these buyers who are in a situation where the time is clicking, it's ticking with them, and they're running out of time to be able to buy this house. You've already given them multiple extensions, but they've been fantastic. They've been the most responsible buyers. They had their down payment in early. I think they had their full 10%, maybe like a year in. I think they had it in, always paid before the month even ended. We had our payments like by the 30th, 28th, they already paid their mortgage. They were fantastic. So we just kept giving them time because they did what they said they were going to do. And now they're closing now, but they were in a very difficult position. They didn't know interest rates were going to skyrocket and affect what their payment with us was $1,650 a month, which was at the time a comparable mortgage payment for a 4 to 5% interest rate. When they got a loan, they had to show that they could pay $2,000 a month is what their mortgage would be on this $230,000 home.
Right.
And what happens? They went into uncomfortable mode, right? But what did they do? They went and got out of their comfort level, did what had to be done to get this closed, and they're closing in a couple of weeks. Now that's the picture perfect buyer that you can put in a house. Somebody that will do everything. They're responsible. They take care of the home and they show up when they need to, right?
Yeah.
Let's
Talk about that. Yeah. So these buyers, again, these are not renters. These are tenant buyers that are going to treat the home as if it's their own because they're buying the home. So why would they trash it? So that's what's good about us as the investors. We don't necessarily have to worry about fixing things, getting those midnight calls. Hey, my toilet's all clogged up. We don't have to worry about that stuff because they are treating it as if it's their own home. They're responsible for that. Now,
the ugly. All right, I'll give you the ugly. Everybody wants to know the ugly. Listen, on Instagram, you see the highlight reel, people in Lamborghinis and how excited they are. This is the dark side of real estate. It's going to happen because life happens and human beings make mistakes. So in 2000, when I sold this house, so this home, first off, there was pieces here that are my fault, and I will explain them to you.
okay.
And you remember this deal, Russell, it took me 13 months to get under contract. Several reiterations of the agreement. They went cold on me multiple times. I'm like, I have never been so close to getting a deal and the follow-ups going this long. It was like 60 something follow-ups to get this thing under contract and giving them space, but then following up in 30 days, giving them space, following up, going out and making them feel comfortable, everything. Finally, I get this house under contract. And it's an expensive house where I am at. So where Russell, where you don't even have houses that are $500,000 probably in your area. They're probably all $800,000-900,000 and up. And a $500,000 in Eastern Connecticut is a big mansion. It's a big house. So this is my biggest house. It was my most expensive payment. I got 120 days to sell this house was the agreement. So 4 months. I got to the 4 months, still can't find a buyer. Tons of people who are interested in it. And just same thing, I'm not having luck. Month 5 goes, I'm playing the salesman with the seller. Oh, we got people right there. Try to give myself extensions. Finally, month like 5.5, I get a buyer. And they seemed great. They passed our credit, going through our credit company. I knew that it would take them 24 months to be able to qualify for a loan. It was perfect. Everything was right there. And it was like last minute. We're talking like the seller's like, I'm taking this back at like a couple of days.
Oh, wow.
Like, I'm about to close it. Just give me a second. And I had been saying, give me a second for a month and a half. So I closed with this buyer and the seller who had been bleeding $2,800 a month while waiting that 5+ months or however many months it was, they were paying the mortgage and they weren't even there. They were in like Arizona and they just had this vacant home that they had renters that left. So they're bleeding $2,800 a month. They're running out of patience. Finally, I close, I get somebody in the home. This was a strong buyer. They put down $38,000, which their down payment needed to be like over time. I think it was like 52. So they put 6 or 7% down. That's a strong buyer up front.
Yep.
And they had good income, and I get them in the house. So they're like habitually late for payments the entire time. In the beginning, it was like 5 days late. Not a huge deal, but a little annoying.
Yeah,
8 months in, it's
right inside that threshold, right? It's
Yeah.
not late, but it's just not early.
And just so you know what we do, anyone who's listening right now, is after a few days, I think it's like day 4, there's a 5% penalty.
Yeah.
So if it's a $3,000 a month payment like this house was, then they have to pay an additional $150. It's 5% of the lease payment. If you get to day like 7, I believe, Russell, does that sound right? 8? It's
Yeah.
10%?
Yeah, 10. It's day 10.
Yeah, day 10.
Out in California is 10. So.
Okay. So day 10, you can hit them with a 10%. And that for them, it was like $300 extra for their payment.
Right.
And day 11 in Connecticut, you can evict. So that's what it is. And if they don't make a payment by 11. Now, I said earlier I made mistakes. So what I should have done was treated it like a business, not listen to sob stories, and evicted them when these things happen. And they always made the payment, but they became later and later, to a point where it was 5 days late all the time. It was 10 days late all the time. It was 20 days late all the time. We're like a year and a half in. And now out of nowhere, they stopped paying in November of last year. Like, just stop paying. The hell? Now, thank God I have business lines of credit, because I didn't want to pay $3,000 a month payment, but I made a commitment. I have to do that.
Right.
So they stopped paying in December. What are they doing? What professional delinquent tenants do is start making excuses. Just give me, it's Thanksgiving's coming up, right? Playing at your heartstrings. Just give me a couple days. I'm like, listen, you have till this day, or I'm sending an eviction out. And then when I go call to tell them I'm sending an eviction, what do? Now, finally, they send a payment.
Of course.
Christmas comes, same thing, no payment. Oh, it's Christmas. I'm like, well, it's Christmas. They got little kids, and I'm not a bad person, but it's a business, but I'll just give them more time. From that moment on, they never paid me again.
Oh, wow.
Never paid me again. So we are now, what's today? March?
Yep. May.
What?
Today is May 11th.
11th. They never paid again. Okay. So it took about, from when I evicted them, or at least sent the eviction out, it's taken from January, let's say 1st, till a week ago. The 1st of May was when they were evicted, because you got to wait. In Connecticut, it was like 60 or 80 days to get a court date. And then they appealed and a bunch of other nonsense just to continue to push it out. And I just finally got them out, a week and a half ago. And now the house is back on the market. Well, this is the thing about real estate. No matter how much you trust in people and they may put bigger down payments down, you just don't know. I don't know what happened to them. I don't know why they stopped paying me. Maybe he is self-employed and he just stopped getting business. He had no ability to pay.
Right.
But this stuff can happen. And if you're not prepared for it, AKA have money from down payments that you didn't spend in the bank that you're waiting just in case these things happen, or B, having lines of credit that are there to protect you so that in these more difficult moments, at least you continue to make these payments, which fortunately I was in that position. But the whole point of telling you that is you could have all the great deals in the world, but no matter what, there's always going to be some outliners. You're going to have people who have life events. Maybe they're just not good people and you didn't realize that, but it's about how you protect and prepare yourself for these moments when they do happen that allow you to continue to push forward. But again, there's good sides, there's bad sides. The majority of my deals went well, but also they've all been profitable, even the ones that haven't with this system. So that's long and short, Russell, of one of my Italian, long, over-winded stories.
Yeah, that's okay. So 2 things I got out of it was you recognize that it is a business, right? We're good people generally, And if people give us excuses, I'm the same way. So they give you the little small violin stories and you're like, oh, okay, it's okay. And I've done it too. I've accepted late payments without any penalties because of the sob stories, but you got to treat it. So if you're a listener and you think this is something for you and you come to the community, you got to treat it as a business, and Chris will tell you that you can't, you give them an inch, right? They're going to take a mile. And then the second thing is it's not over until it's over. So you're selling this traditionally. I'm assuming that over time that the house has appreciated. So you could be selling it more as a premium. Yes, there were some months there where it was a struggle, but if you had more time with the seller, hypothetically, if you had more, let's say this is a 48 or a 60 month and you had some time, you can potentially put another rent to own buyer again. So let's a disclaimer. We're not looking for rent to own buyers to fail. Right. There are companies out there, there's people out there that they just don't care. If they get the down payment, they fail. They're like, sweet, I'm just going to get another down payment. I'll just find another buyer. They just treat it more like a rental property than anything. We don't. That's why we charge such a pretty substantial down payment, because we want them to get to the finish line the first time. Now, if they don't, life happens, like you said, and we have enough time with the seller, we can potentially put another rent to own buyer there, get another down payment, and then it stops bleeding, and then they close out, and you actually made more money than you potentially thought you would when you first started the deal. So not everything is done, even though, again, you were in the dip. Now, when you sell it traditionally, you're going to get that euphoria of getting that paycheck at the end of the day, right?
100%.
Awesome. Good stuff. Great conversation with you, Steve. It's always great to see you weekly.
Yes, sir. I love it. You're coming down. I'm going to see you, Russell. I was talking to Judy Richards the other day, and it sounds like you guys are going to be down there the 25th to the 27th.
Yep.
I'll see you guys probably on that Monday night when you guys come in. I think I have that day open.
All right. I'm looking forward to the whalers.
And I'll see you next week, my man.
All right. Take care, buddy.
Later, Russell.
Later.